Hey there people, how are you doing? So today we are going to compare the OnePlus 8 Pro and the S20 Plus, and we're going to see which one has the better video quality. Now I'll admit that the photo comparison was pretty much a tie with maybe a little bit of preference shifting, but other than that I don't think the OnePlus 8 Pro is in any way behind the S20 in terms of image quality. But when it comes to video quality, the things may or may not change. So now it's time to find out if the more expensive S20 will stay ahead, or will the underdog OnePlus 8 Pro, coming in at slightly cheaper, take over. Okay, so we're starting off with the front cameras, and well, on the OnePlus there are some limitations. Not only, as you can see, the field of view is kind of less, while on the S20 it's quite a bit wider, but I'm recording 4K on 20, while the OnePlus is unfortunately limited to 1080p up to 30. Well, the S20 can go all the way up to 4K at 60. That's quite a big advantage if you ask me. And well, otherwise I'm going to let you know how I feel about the colors as well soon enough, and the audio quality that you're hearing right now. So first and foremost here, I do think that the audio sounds a little bit tinny on the OnePlus, while the S20 has much better vocals. Other than that, it's fine, I guess. And image quality wise, I definitely prefer the S20 because it's got much better dynamic range and my skin looks a slight bit better. And then I just took this little clip just to see if there are any differences in exposure control, but well, they're very similar. Next up, for this little panning, I do think that the OnePlus is slightly lacking in dynamic range, while the S20 is doing a really good job in terms of maintaining the highlights and giving us really good shadow detail, and the detail levels are definitely very similar. Here you can see just how much the shadows are being crushed on the OnePlus, while the S20 is keeping them well in check. Now this is a super steady video on both, and fun fact, OnePlus can do 4K 30 with Super Steady enabled, while the S20 is stuck at 1080p. I'd say the stabilization is a tad bit better on the S20, but there's a crop and low resolution, while the overall image quality is better on the OnePlus, but the stabilization takes a tad hit. It depends on preference really, which one you really want. I would pick the OnePlus with the better detail and overall image quality for my own preference. Next up, a slow walk with 4K 30 on both, and well, I have to say it looks insanely similar, maybe a tad bit more contrast and a little bit more vibrance on the OnePlus, but otherwise they look absolutely the same with similar levels of detail, and I have to say both of them look really nice. As for this one, we're switching over to ultrawide from the main lens, and while the OnePlus does it with just one go, the S20 does a slick little zoom out animation, which I kinda like. Other than that, the contrast levels and vibrance is higher on the OnePlus, while the S20 is managing to keep a much more neutral look. But once again, the main thing to note here is that the ultra-wide camera on the OnePlus is really not that wide. You can see just how much wider the S20 can get, while the OnePlus is, well, it's alright, it's not too bad, but it's not the best either. Now zooming in to 3 times on both, and we get pretty much similar results with more vibrance and contrast on the OnePlus, while the S20 has a little bit more shadow detail in my opinion. Now moving on indoors with Valentine as star of the show, you can see that we are using 8K for the S20, and unfortunately on the OnePlus we don't even have the option. So we're stuck with 4K here. But even then, I'd say that OnePlus looks kind of smudged up for whatever reason, while the S20, well, it's using 8K, so the detail levels are just phenomenal. And well, you should know by now that 8K cannot really focus that well. You can see that when moving around with Valentine and the camera, the focusing is kind of hit or miss on the S20. A quick little focusing test with the S20 here, and you can see that it is just flawless. It's at 4K 30, and I have to admit, the dual pixel autofocus on this one is almost unbeatable if you ask me. And it is really unfortunate that the same focusing does not translate to 8K. Next up for the OnePlus, I have to admit, the details do look a lot smudged up than I'd have expected, but even the focusing isn't that good. I'd expected a little bit better focusing and, more importantly, faster focusing. It does often appear to take its own sweet time to focus on subjects. Next up is another 4K clip, and this time on both, and you can see the S20 blows the OnePlus out of the water. Whether it's detail levels, overall dynamic range, man, I have to say the S20 looks really good here because, well, the lighting conditions were such, but the OnePlus is really upping the contrast a little too much, making the highlights blown out, and the shadows are really crushed. And of course, that slower focusing really does not play in the favor because the OnePlus also has much lower detail levels. Next up is a slow motion test, and I wanted to put this clip in particular because here I'm using a really well lit condition with numerous LED lights, but still, for whatever reason, there is this nasty, nasty flicker. And I don't know why it's here because I've used the S20 in the same conditions before and it didn't have it before, but here, for whatever reason, we're having the same flicker on both. But ignoring that, you can see that the OnePlus is definitely a lot better with more vibrance and overall brightness and contrast. It's really making the coffee look a lot richer in my opinion. But on the S20, you can also record audio, while the OnePlus for whatever reason doesn't record it. At times, it might be a little nice to have audio, but not always, I guess. So with both the photo and video comparisons done, I can safely say that OnePlus 8 Pro has a definitive and a really powerful camera system overall. The fact that the images the 8 Pro can produce can almost be equally stacked alongside the S20 Plus is really something in my opinion. I can confidently say that the image quality of the OnePlus 8 Pro's camera can quite easily be at par with the S20's. But when it comes to video quality, well, the 8 Pro takes quite a hit in my opinion. Especially when you come indoors, you can see that there is a tremendous detail loss and the dynamic range is really not that good. The highlights are blown out, the shadows are really not that well maintained, and I do think that the noise reduction algorithm that's going on in the OnePlus 8 Pro is really crushing the details to an abysmal level. And obviously, the OnePlus 8 Pro is a definitive flagship now. It is priced as one as well, so I don't think it's a far-fetched call to say that it should directly be able to compete with the S20, toe to toe. It does that in image quality, but when it comes to video, it really falls behind, and that's really disappointing to be honest. I had maybe expected a little bit more from the video side of things, but images, I have to say, it performed admirably well. So I guess if you were to buy the OnePlus 8 Pro, so don't expect a lot from video, but definitely with the images, you will be happy. As for the S20, well, it costs a lot more. And if you were to consider the same phone, which is the S20 Plus I'm using here, it costs almost $300 more. So I would say that it's obvious that it has a much better camera performance than the OnePlus 8 Pro. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers.